Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today I am showing you a deck that I've been promising for a little while. It's Lurantis. It's Vileplume. It's Lurantis Vileplume. Now, this deck works because both these Pokemon are great and have fantastic synergy. That means they work well together. Starting off with Vileplume, it is the ability that we're worried about here. The ability of Vileplume, as soon as it comes into play, means that both Pokemon are barred from playing item cards from their hand. That means no switching, no floatstone, no escape rope, no crushing hammer, no enhanced hammer, no Versus Seeker, no trainer's mail, no Ultra Ball. I could keep going, but I have to stick the card image every time I say it, so if I list too many cards, it's going to be a nightmare in editing. You get the idea. A lot of cards that a lot of decks rely on can no longer be played. Now, we are going to build our deck so it doesn't matter if we're blocked off from items, but our opponent probably isn't, and that means that they are going to be much worse affected by Vileplume than we are. Vileplume sits on the bench and blocks items, and while it does so, we're attacking with Lurantis GX, who, well, I'm not telling you exactly where it came, but I did a top 10 cards of Pokémon Sun and Moon video. Lurantis was ranked very high. Maybe you go have a look. Now, there are 3 attacks here and they all have their uses. Firstly, Flower Supply. 40 damage, and you get to attach 2 basic energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. And first priority is probably getting free energy on Lurantis to use Solar Blade, and then you start building up new Lurantises, Luranti, I don't know, Lurantis. I don't think most Pokemon do proper plurals, you just use the name, so 1 Lurantis, 2 Lurantis, etc. Somebody told me that once, I don't know if it's true. You build up new ones on the bench and you attack all game. Going into the second attack, it gets even better. 2 grass and 1 colourless, although in reality 3 basic grass, because that's all we're playing here. 120 damage, and you heal 30 from Lurantis. So ideally, turn 1 you hit for 40 while attaching 2 energy, and then every other turn you just hit for 120 while healing 30. Now maybe you occasionally use the first attack to build up a bench Lurantis, but mostly here, you hit with Solar Blade, 120 damage, healing 30, and you can just manually attach to Lurantis on the bench. 210 HP, and you're healing 30 damage per turn, means Lurantis is going to stick around for a little while. Now you add in the energy acceleration, and the fact that 120 damage will 2-hit KO most things in the format, and we are rocking and rolling here, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget that grass is a decent type. Look at cards like, I think Lycanroc GX is going to be pretty good in the new format. Well, like a lot of fighting Pokemon, it's weak to grass, so the typing of Lurantis here is, shall we say, not insignificant. Now, we do have a GX attack on Lurantis. It's the only one we're probably going to be using in this deck. And it's not even an every game attack. It's, oh my god, I really need a big GX attack right now. Chloro-Size GX. 50 damage times the number of grass energy attached to this Pokemon. So if you really need a big KO, you attach 4 grass to do 200, 5 grass to do 250, and you get a big one-hit KO on whatever you need. Now, Lurantis has a retreat cost of 2, but don't forget you can manually retreat, and then you can attack with a new Lurantis using Flower Supply to reattach the energy. You can just build up a whole bunch of damage on a bench Lurantis, bring it in for a big GX attack, and then go back to hitting 120 while you build up a Lurantis on the bench. Lots of synergy here, ladies and gentlemen, lots of things to like. Now, in terms of other cards we need, there are some main cards that we really need to be relying on. The main one here, and I would argue that once this gets rotated out, this deck will get infinitely worse, although it's quite likely Vileplume will rotate out at the same time. It's Forest of Giant Plants. This is what turns this deck from a fun idea to a top tier deck, because this allows you to evolve your grass Pokemon whenever you darn well feel like it. This is spectacular, and for anyone that's already put it in the comments, yes, I know Vileplume and Forest of Giant Plants were both released in Ancient Origins and have to be rotated out at the same time, but we've seen more than one of these Vileplume, so there's nothing to stop an almost identical Vileplume being printed in the future. It's happened before. So here, you can just go Oddish Gloom Vileplume, you can go Fomantis Lurantis, you can just be evolving up whenever you feel like it. You could have a turn 1 Lurantis with a turn 1 Vileplume. That is ridiculous. Now there's another card that helps here. It's the new Shinotic, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, from the Pokémon Sun and Moon set. It's a stage 1. It's a grass Pokemon, so you can use Forest of Giant Plants, and it allows you once per turn to search for a grass Pokemon. This just ups your odds of hitting it. It means that if you can get Shinotic, but you miss the Vileplume, that's okay. Search for the Vileplume. It means that once you've got one Lurantis out, Shinotic can search for a Fomantis one turn, a Lurantis the next turn, etc. You can be sitting there guaranteeing yourself a new grass Pokemon every turn. As a side note, due to bench space and deck space, I think Shinotic is a 1-1 in this deck. Yeah, maybe sometimes one of the 1-1 line will be prized. It happens. I don't care. I think it's a 1-1 in every deck. Now, you're going to want a whole bunch of Bull Search here, and we have 3 options. Ultra Ball is a 4-of in this deck because you can search for any Pokemon you like. Yes, I know you have to discard 2 cards from your hand. Oh, wait a second, because Lurantis really wants Grass Energy in the discard. That means it's good if you're discarding energy from your hand. Yay! And that is the ideal here. Plus, you only really need Forest of Giant Plants at the beginning of the game, so maybe you can discard them as well. And of course, get rid of your item cards. Now, we're going to be talking about item cards here. And some people might be thinking, well, hang on a second, Ross. Why are we playing so many item cards in a Vileplume deck when we won't be able to play them after we get Vileplume out? The answer is very simple. We run lots of items to get turn 1 Vileplume, and if we're going first, that means no items for our opponent during the entire game. And our deck runs with very little after that. We don't really need to be searching out Pokemon or energy or anything like that. Lurantis gets us our energy from the discard. Shinotic searches us any Pokemon we might need. It's a very straightforward deck. We're not relying on cards like Lysander. I mean, we'll play 1 or 2, and if we draw them, great. But we're not relying on them like other decks are. We're not relying on Pokemon tools like other decks are. We don't need to be searching for lots of stuff mid to late game. We want a couple of Lurantis, and then we just sit and use the attacks. We can afford to be item locked, but we still need lots to get going. Level Ball will not allow you to search for everything, unfortunately. It won't allow you to search for the Vileplume. It won't allow you to search for the Shinotic. It won't allow you to search for the Lurantis GX, but it will allow you to search for everything else. And I'm okay with this. It will get you your Oddish, your Gloom, your Fomantis, your Morlul. That's good enough for me. And another card that I think you need to play at least 1 of, but maybe a few others, Timer Ball. Flip 2 coins for each head, search for an evolution Pokemon. So you can't have Fomantis, you can't have Morlul, you can't have Oddish, but you can have Shinotic, Gloom, Vileplume, and Lurantis GX. Again, like Level Ball, you can't get everything, but it's good enough. You need 4 Ultra Ball, but then play a couple of Level Ball, couple of Timer Ball, really help you get these Pokemon out. We want to be running through our deck really, really fast, and we really need to be searching these Pokemon out. Ball cards are good. Along those lines, we need a bunch of consistency cards. Now, Shaman EX is a given here. Best draw support we've got. You're going to be wanting to play Trainer's Mail. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Find a trainer card you find there other than Trainer's Mail and put it into your hand. It helps you get your balls. It helps you to get Forest of Giant Plants. It helps you to get Floatstone. More on that in a moment. It's really, really good. Same thing with Acrobike. Look at the top 2 cards, put one in your hand, discard the other. Yes, you might occasionally have to discard really useful cards, but you need to draw quickly. If you're just sitting there with Lurantis as your only attacker, your opponent can take advantage of that. If you're sitting there with Lurantis while your opponent is item locked and unable to get going, that is how this deck wins. We need these consistency cards to get going. The other thing you'll need here is some switching cards. Now, there's 2 here that really spring to mind. Number 1 is Floatstone. Lurantis doesn't really mind retreating here, because it's got a retreat cost of 2, which is annoying, I suppose, but you can retreat and then you can just use Lurantis' attack to reattach the energy. It's not the end of the world here. Your opponent is not going to really want to Lysander a Lurantis into the active, because you've got a really good attack for a single energy. But your Shinotic's got a retreat cost of 2, and that's a fairly big problem. Vileplume's got a retreat cost of 3, and that's an even bigger problem. And we are not playing double colourless energy to help you retreat Shinotic or Vileplume here. So you really need to get float stones attached to Vileplume and Shinotic, because if you don't get them on those Pokemon, your opponent is going to play a Lysander to drag them into the active and strand them. So we want to play Olympia. Now, we'd rather play cards like Switch and Escape Rope, but of course we're item locked as well. So we play Olympia. Olympia here being a supporter card that acts as a switch and heals 30 damage, I suppose, from the Pokemon that's just gone to the bench, but that's not really what we're thinking about here. Maybe healing that 30 damage will be key at some point. Really here, we play Olympia so that our opponent cannot strand Vileplume in the active, because if we get a Vileplume out before we've got a Floatstone attached to it, there are going to be some shady moments, and your opponent is going to be looking for a Lysander as soon as they possibly can. Olympia helps us. Although, as a side note, remember that we are not going to be playing Versus Seeker. We're playing item cards like Trainer's Mail and Acrobike to get going fast. We are not playing mid to late game recovery cards like Versus Seeker. So you want to be playing 2 or 3 Olympia to help you draw into them when you need them. Very nice. Now, there are some other options here. None of these are particularly great. I don't know if I'd play any of these in my deck, but they are things to consider. Firstly, there's the new Lurantis, about which I did a video the other day. Adds 20 damage to your grass and fire Pokemon's attacks. You could here play this, because of course you're already playing Fomantis. But let's be clear about this. This deck works on consistency and blocking your opponent. The extra 20 damage could be good, but what happens if you only have this Lurantis when you really need a Lurantis GX to be attacking? Not a huge fan, but you could play it. Obviously, it has a lot of synergy here because you're playing Fomantis anyway. Although, as a side note, in that Lurantis video I mentioned about using Devolution Spray to get the extra 20 damage when you need it and switch to Lurantis GX when you need to attack. You can't play Devolution Spray when Vileplume's out. Not a huge fan in this deck. Now, you could use any grass attacker you like because you're already playing grass energy. You're already playing Forest of Giant Plants. Maybe a 1-1 Vespiquen line could be good here. Because let's face it, you're going to be playing a fairly thick line of Lurantis. You're going to be playing a fairly thick line of Vileplume. So you're playing quite a few Pokemon anyway. So here, you could use something like a Vespiquen and 20 damage for 2 energy, plus 10 for each Pokemon in your discard. In the late game, this could be swinging for 150, 200 damage maybe. At which point, this could take you your final KO to win the game. Not such a fan of a thick line here, but a 1-1 line of Vespiquen in this deck? I could see some fun in that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the fact that you are accelerating any energy to any Pokemon means that you can play any attacker in this deck. So maybe you play something like a Volcanion, so that in the mirror match you've got a big advantage. Maybe you play something like a Fright Knight Yveltal to take out your opponent's Shaman on the bench. I'm not a huge fan of any of these. I raise it as an option. I do not think they're great. It's clunky. It requires you playing basic energy other than grass, and of course, grass is needed for Lurantis GX's attacks. But I am saying that if you're playing Lurantis and you've got a really big problem with one particular deck, you could add in 1 or 2 attackers and 1 or 2 basic energy to help you out here. And in Expanded, consider playing AZ and Cassius, so that if your Lurantis is about to be KO'd, Cassius shuffles it in, AZ picks it up. Oh no, you've had to discard your energy. which you can then reattach using the next Lurantis. I would probably play 1 or 2 AZ if I was playing this in Expanded. And there's no reason not to play it in Expanded. This is a fairly straightforward deck that does its thing and is likely to beat any deck if you get set up nicely and lose if you don't. Could be good in Expanded as well. And of course, Seismitoad could be good in Expanded, and this preys on Seismitoad so hard. Now, there are a couple of problems for this deck. I can't go through everything here, this video is getting long enough as it is. But 2 major problems here. Number 1, fire decks. Things like Volcanion, well, Non-EX Volcanion is a basic that attacks for 1 energy and accelerates energy. You do not need a big setup in a Volcanion deck to start taking down Lurantis, and they're kind of 2-hit KOing you at best. This is looking pretty good. Don't forget, Lurantis being a GX gives up 2 prizes. Fire decks could be rough here. The other thing you can use here is and I've talked about this a few times, including in my top 10 cards of Sun and Moon video, the combination of Tauros and Ninja Boy. You get hit for 120 by Lurantis, switch into Tauros and you hit for 360 damage. And you get the 1-hit KO on Lurantis. I am a huge fan of Ninja Boy Tauros in a lot of decks. And of course, Ninja Boy can be played under item lock, and Tauros will be searched from your deck using it. So Tauros Ninja Boy is going to be a really fun tech against Lurantis here. Something to bear in mind. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. Tell me what you think of this deck. Tell me if there's any other cards that could be nicely used in here that I have negated to mention either deliberately or accidentally. Make sure you click that like button. A couple of you have been asking, actually quite a few of you have been asking that I do more deck videos. Here's a deck video. Show me some love with the like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter @TheWassy. And the most important thing as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.